Okay everyone, welcome to the channel and welcome to my manufacturer's round 2 highlights video from Dragon Trail Seaside in the reverse, so the death chicane. And this was one of the hardest races we have had so far in terms of survival. We had 34 laps of the death chicane with full damage on, so no more light damage, full damage. You hit the wall, that is your race over. So this was a very intense race. I managed to do a very good qualifying for the McLaren. The McLaren was not the strongest car here. There was probably a lot of other cars like the Mazda, BMW, the Genesis and the Supra that were all quicker. We managed to put ourselves in P5 in top split, which I was very happy about. Probably overqualified it slightly, but we're going to try and take advantage of this and get this race started. So strategy wise, this was a bit of a weird one really. We were doing 3 stints on the soft tyre and only 1 lap on the hard tyre, because to be honest the hard tyre was a bit sketchy, especially with the McLaren going through the chicane of death. So we were going for the more simple approach to doing this, and sticking to the soft tyre and taking a more safe approach. But we can see in front of us clearly we've got the Genesis that's on the hard tyre and probably the car in front of that. So going through the death chicane, we're going to back out straight away. I didn't want to be too close to cars on lap 1 in case one car makes a mistake and then you all get taken out. So just lifted a little bit there, gave myself a gap, and now pushing into the braking zone. And you can see there, deck in front of us, going for the move on the Genesis. We're going to go for a wider line and go for a better exit speed, and we actually pull off a really nice overtake there, getting 2 cars in one move and putting myself straight up to P3. So a very strong start. Obviously the Genesis was on the hard tyres there, I think, because he had rubbish traction, so clearly not on the same tyres as I'm on. And clearly P2 here in front of us, Joss, very quick driver, has made it to a world tour, very quick driver in front of us. He's also clearly on the hard tyre, because you can see through the corners doesn't have the grip that I've got out of my McLaren. But we're going to put him under some pressure and get past him as quick as possible. Not really much opportunity here to go through a move. You can see I'm not close enough to send one up the inside. We are obviously on 2 tyres further up in terms of softness, but it's just not going to be able to send one from that far back. So through the last corner, and now picking up the slipstream on the straight, and hopefully going to go for a move here. And you can see Dex is going to give us a little bump draft there on the straight. Obviously wants to try and get past the BMW as well. You can see we're picking up that slip. BMW quite strong on the early acceleration, but lacks the speed that McLaren has in 5th gear. McLaren is very strong in 5th gear, so once we get into that 5th gear, up through the inside and now up into P2 in this race. So very strong start for us at Dragon Trail. Not particularly a track that I've ever really warmed to. It's not one of my strongest tracks, but I will say that what I did like about these races are the fact that you can change some of the setup options. We've managed to find the setup when we did this race that kind of worked for the McLaren, and it actually made going through the death chicane quite, not easy, but a little bit more simple and a little bit more safer. I went for quite a safe approach with the setup options that we had, because we were allowed to change dampers and frequency. No other settings are to be changed, and that made it possible to make the car a little bit safer through the chicane. You can see as we go through to the end of lap 2, we can see that Deck is going to go past us in that Mazda. The Mazda was just too strong at this combination for the McLaren. It was just a really strong car, along with the Genesis and the Supra. They were all really strong cars, and the BMW obviously another very strong car. So at the moment though, we're the leading MR car and we're doing pretty good. We obviously know that there's cars behind me that are on the alternative strategy of starting on the hard tyre, and they're going to probably jump us further on in the race. So it's just about keeping calm, keeping it on the track, and at this point trying to stay with the slipstream to Deck in front of us. He's in the Mazda there, and he had some really good pace. He was absolutely flying. So he made an odd little mistake though that was just enabling me to pick up that slipstream, so it was helping me gain a little bit of straight pace on the straight. So every time he made a mistake, it just gave me a little bit of slip, and we were able to get back into that slipstream, as you can see through here now, into these fast flowing corners. All about just trying to get the rotation through here, up onto the curve on the left, and then flinging it back into this right hand side, and then back on the throttle. And you can see again a little bit of a mistake from Deck in front of us there, again giving me that little bit of extra slipstream, putting me back to 7 tenths behind him. So all helping out a little bit. You can see I had -5 brake bias on. That was to help the rear tyres, because obviously the McLaren is going to use the rear tyres up before any other tyre. So jumping through to lap 4 again, going through the death chicane, you can see taking a little bit cautious sometimes, not pushing 100% through there, because I did not want to risk any sort of damage, because if you hit that wall once, it could literally wreck your whole entire race, especially at this point. If you hit or get damaged towards the end of your stint, it wasn't too bad because you could then go into the pits and get it repaired. But if it was midway through, it'd totally throw your strategy off and it would kind of just ruin your race. So you can see at this point now on lap 5, you can see that Deck in that Mazda was starting to pull away again, nearly broke the slipstream, but made a little mistake on the exit, which then again has luckily for me given me that slipstream, and it's enabling me to stay as close as we can to. You can see the first few laps, not the greatest laps, 38.1, 38.2, and then we got into the 37s, and again we're going a little bit quicker on this lap where we're picking up a bit of slipstream, and obviously a bit of fuel is starting to come off the car now. And actually, with a little bit of tyre wear, this car was actually driving really well. You can see we managed to get our times down to 36.6, 37.6, 37.5, now that we're in that slipstream. And we're managing to stay with that Mazda and hang in the slipstream, which is actually helping my pace at the moment because it's giving me that little bit of extra acceleration on the straights and a little bit more top speed on the straights as well. You can see 7 tenths behind. You can see that Mazda on the straight much quicker during the early acceleration, but in 5th gear, McLaren again, you can see it starts to come back a bit at that Mazda and is able to hang with the Mazda in 5th gear. So into the turn 1, again trying to get a good solid exit off this corner, and just at this moment, just following really. I knew that Deck was quicker in front of us in that Mazda, and it was all about just playing it safe and just trying to hang with him at this stage of the race. You can see again as we go through the depth chicane, not taking too many risks, pushing quite aggressively though. 136 was the lowest speed we got down to there, nearly holding a little bit more to 137, but yeah, not over driving it, just trying to make sure that we keep the car safe away from the wall, getting close some laps obviously through the depth chicane, but as long as we don't hit it, we're not going to pick up any damage, which is going to cost us time in the pit lane. So again, following down on the downhill section to Deck in front of us in that Mazda. And again, it's just about just trying to hang with him through here. We're losing a bit of aero, obviously, with following, but the McLaren is very strong. The setup that we created was really good with rotation, so it's really good at rotating through them high-speed corners. And you can see at lap 10, we can see he's going to go into the pits now on lap 10. Now, I made probably a mistake here. I decided to try and go 1 lap longer and try and then give myself better tyres at the ends and then see how this plan would work. And I was hoping what would happen would that I'd just creep back into the slipstream if he maybe got a little bit of traffic, because obviously different cars are on different strategies. So I was hoping he might have picked up a bit of traffic, and as we see, we come out the pits and he hasn't got any traffic, and as we go through turn 1, we're just losing that slipstream, which is going to lose me a bit of pace. So probably a mistake that, probably should have pitted with him and then got into his slipstream and benefited. And you can see by lap 20 he's 5 seconds ahead, and that is what's probably, we probably could have stayed with him if we would have just got in that slipstream. So probably cost ourselves about 5 seconds there, which is a bit frustrating. But then as we come through this corner, we see that Deck has had a big moment. He's hit the barrier, he's rejoined the track, and he's clearly got some damage there. So that has put us back into P2 in this race. So 1 position gained, and that is how easy it is to lose it at this track. And that isn't even on the depth chicane. That was at the tricky left-hand corner, getting on, probably got onto the curb and then spun straight into the wall. Very easily done. It's a really dodgy curb on that exit. So yeah, up into P2 for ourselves, and now just trying to play it pretty safe. You can see the second stint was actually really good for myself, considering we had no slipstream. We were doing 37.2s, 37.3 at the start, and then it started to drop off a bit, but even a 37.5 towards the end of the stint. So pretty strong run-in for myself. We again did the 11 laps, so that we only have to do 1 lap on the hard tyre at the end. And again, now we're going to refuel the car up, and then we're going to put the soft tyres back on, and then we're going to go and do 1 lap at the end. So out of the pits, we come out in P2, and pretty much in no man's land, just on our own. And this was a good thing about doing the soft stint. It gave you a lot of clean air, which means you're going to have less chance of making mistakes through the depth chicane, which is where people were making the errors. But at the moment, Jack in P1 is driving faultless. Absolutely brilliant drive at the front by him in the Genesis, and there is literally no chance of us catching up to him at all. I think the Genesis was just a quicker car at this track also compared to the McLaren, but the McLaren actually did alright. It was pretty good in some areas, just lacked a little bit of acceleration on the uphill parts of the track where it just lost a bit of pace. But you can see as we skip to lap 32, we're still in P2, but we've got a lot of the drivers that are on the alternative strategy catching us up behind. They're obviously on the hard, they've been on that hard tyre, and now they're on the soft tyres to the end, and I still need to go onto the hard tyre for 1 lap. And we made quite a few scruffy mistakes, as you can see there. Another mistake on the exit. We did quite a few little mistakes like that at the end of the stim, and it was possibly to do with the setup, because when we were testing this, we did realise that as the fuel went down, obviously the weight transfer changes on the car, and the setup gave a little bit more understeer than what it did at the early stage. But it was a lot better on the early stage, so I'm glad that I did this setup. And we're going to go in the pits, you see here, on lap 33, and do one lap on the hard tyre. This was the better strategy for the McLaren for me. It was a safer strategy with MR cars, rather than risking going through the death chicane on that hard tyre for 6 or 7 laps. It would have been quite scary to do with this car. So yeah, and we probably would have had to have done maybe 9 laps, or maybe more, maybe 10 laps if we were to do the 2-stop strategy. So yeah, I think we would have lost too much pace. So at this point, we've done the right strategy. We've come out in P6, which I think is the best we could have really got in this car, because every car in front of us there, I think, is an FR car that was one of the strongest cars at this combination. So we're the leading MR car, and we've done a pretty solid job here. Just got to keep it smooth through the death chicane on the hard tyre and try not to crash. You can see the understeer that we got even then with that hard tyre and how close I got to the wall. So definitely made the correct call. Free stop, it worked a treat, and we're in P6 at the moment, and we've got a 20-second gap to P7, so we're very unlikely to lose this position to anyone behind us unless we make a silly mistake. And we can see some of the cars in front are obviously starting to struggle on their soft tyres, where they've gone for a very, very long stint on the soft. So you can see we actually started to gain on a few of the cars in front on the hard tyre over their soft tyres, because their soft tyres were completely dead. But yeah, the last stint was a little bit scruffy. Maybe if we would have followed the slipstream to deck on the second stint and pitted the same time as him, we would have gained 3 or 4 seconds there, and maybe we could have done a better last stint. But at the end of the day, I think P6 was pretty much there where we would have got with this car. I think the McLaren just wasn't good enough to beat the Genesis, BMW, or the Mazda around this track anyway. So we end up with a pretty nice P6 here. Last corner, no mistakes, and then working our way up to the finishing line for a reasonably well driven, a very safely driven drive in the McLaren at Dragon Trail Seaside Reverse, a track that can easily get you with that depth chicane. So yeah, pretty happy with that. You can see all the cars ahead of us were pretty much the strongest cars at the track: the Vision, Supra, Genesis, M6. They were all the very, very strong cars. So yeah, a very solid result, and 322 points at the end there. So very, very happy with that as well. Our target was 300 points, and we managed 322. So was very, very, very happy to walk away with that amount of points at this combination. But yeah, if you did enjoy that video, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and I'll be back with more in the future for these highlights videos.